Hi, Trinity friends. Welcome back. So good to have you join me again. We are on chapter 15, or the 15th of December, as the book likes to call it. We have two towers, water, a man walking over walking over a bridge. Let me see if I can find it on the back for you. How well can I get this to you now? So that's what it is in color. So it's obviously over water. And I mean, we're going toward the Adriatic. Maybe we're already at the Adriatic. I don't know. No idea. But we're going to read and we're going to find out. Do you realize that being at the 15th, 9 more chapters left, and it's Christmas Eve? So let's read and find out, see where we're going today. Fear not, he said, in a voice as soft as silk. Ooh, do you think that could be Imperial talking? Be cool. When Joachim woke up on the 15th of December, there were only 10 doors left to open in the magic advent calendar. He didn't even have time to sit up in bed before Mama and Papa were in his room. You know, this is turning out to be a Christmas gift every day. This is cool. Joachim was no longer cross because they had opened his Christmas box. They had done something they had no right to, but he had forgiven them. He couldn't have gone on sulking about it forever. Besides, it was more fun to read about Elizabeth and the pilgrimage when Mama and Papa were sharing it. It was almost like having a birthday every day until Christmas Eve. Oh, I'm glad he's feeling that way now. Let's get going, said Papa. Joachim pulled himself up in bed and opened door number 15. He had to fish out the scrap of folded paper and be careful so that it didn't tear. The picture showed islands and skerries with houses on them. The small islands were bathed in radiant sunshine. That day, it was Papa's turn to read. He grabbed the piece of paper, cleared his throat twice, and read loudly and clearly from the fragile sheet. The seventh sheep. The pilgrims came to the Venetian lagoon at the top of the Adriatic Sea. They paused on a little rise with a view over the lagoon, and Epheriel started to point out all the islands that studded the water. On many of the islets, the Venetians had built houses, on some of them churches as well. Several of the islets were so close together that bridges had been built between them. Everywhere there were scores of small fishing boats. The year is 797 years after Christ, announced Epheriel. We see the young Venice, which will soon be the name of the 118 islands. The Venetians settled here in order to be protected from the sea pirates and barbarians who were roving about. Exactly 100 years ago, they all combined under a leader called the Doge. I can't see any gondolas, complained Elizabeth. I thought there would be more bridges too. Epheriel laughed. But you're not in the Venice of the 20th century. I said the time was 797 and that people had lived here for only a couple of centuries. But Venice will soon become so thickly populated that one island will scarcely be separated from another. While they stood looking out over all the small islets and islands, a rowing boat came past. One end was filled with salt. In the other end stood some sheep bleating at the sun, which was about to break through the morning mist. The man who was rowing the boat was so frightened when he caught sight of the procession of pilgrims that he covered his eyes with his arm, took a step backwards, and lost his balance so that he fell head over heels into the water. Elizabeth saw him come to the surface a few seconds later and then go under again. "He's drowning!" she cried. "We must save him!" But the angel Ephriel was already on his way. He hovered gracefully above the glittering water, seized the man when he surfaced again, and lifted him up onto the land, dripping wet. Ephriel drew in the rowboat. The man lay down on the ground and coughed fit to burst his lungs. He gasped for breath and said, "Grazia, grazia." Elizabeth tried to explain that they were on their way to Bethlehem to greet the Christ child and that he needn't be frightened. Ephriel had begun circling around him. "Fear not," he said in a voice as soft as silk, "and be in no wise afraid. But you should not have been all alone on the sea if you can't swim, for you can't always expect an angel to be around. We wander about only very rarely, you know." It didn't look as if Ephriel's advice was any comfort to the man, but the cherub sat down beside him, patted him on the cheek, and went on repeating, "Fear not, fear not." Can you imagine this poor man? He's being patted on the cheek by an angel? No, by a cherub. It must have had an effect, for the man got to his feet and trudged back to his boat. He lifted a little lamb out of it and walked back towards them. "Agnus Dei," he said, and that means God's lamb. And the lamb joined the rest of the flock of sheep without protest. Joshua struck his shepherd's crook on the ground and said, "To Bethlehem, to Bethlehem," and they all sprang off again. At the very end of the Venetian Gulf stood the old Roman town of Aquileia. As they ran, Ephriel pointed to a monastery. The time is 718 years after Christ, but there have been Christian communities here from ancient times. The procession of pilgrims sped on through the town. Then they continued south, across country through Croatia. Papa put down the scrap of paper on the bed and opened one of the large atlases that he had placed on Joachim's bed. "Here's Venice," he said, "and here's Trieste. I guess. That's on the border of Yugoslavia, and I can't find the other towns." Okay, so this book was written when it was still Yugoslavia. Now we have Croatia and Bosnia. "But maybe it doesn't exist anymore," said Mama. "You must look in the historical atlas as well." Papa fetched the other atlases. There were maps of all the countries in Europe, but the names of the countries and the towns were different from one map to the other. "Find a map of the area for the 8th century, said Mama. Papa turned the pages of the atlas over and over again. The old town was situated halfway between Venice and Trieste. "This is quite fantastic." "What is?" asked Joachim. "Well, your John must have used old maps, like this too, for the world changes the whole time. History is like a big pile of pancakes, where each pancake is a new map of the world." "Pancakes?" said Joachim. Papa nodded. It's never enough to ask where something's happening, and it's not enough to ask when something's happening. You always have to ask both when and where. He put both hands on top of Joachim's hands. Imagine that you have 20 pancakes piled on top of each other. If there's a black speck on one of the pancakes, and you have to find that particular speck, you must find out which of the 20 pancakes the black speck is on, and exactly where on the pancake. You have to leaf through the whole pile. Joachim nodded, and Papa went on. The long journey to Bethlehem is all about a journey that goes right through all 20 pancakes. Elizabeth doesn't just travel around on the top pancake. She's moving through the whole mountain of them. Now Joachim understood what Papa meant by a pile of pancakes. They're traveling down through 20 centuries, said Papa. There are maps in this book that show how the world looked in every one of those 20 centuries. I think John must have been reading a pancake book like this. Papa and Joachim couldn't help laughing when Papa said, "Pancake book." The big question is whether there really was a man who was saved by an angel in Venice in the year 797. "Do you believe it's possible to find out?" said Mama. "Surely you don't think all this story is true?" said Papa. "No, I suppose not," said Mama. "But if it really had happened, the man would be bound to have talked about it, to the priest, for instance. Then it might have been written about in some books. Maybe we ought to search in the library shelves." Papa didn't want to hear any more. Instead, he said, "Let's go and have a pizza in town and go to the market afterwards. You remember what he looks like, Joachim, don't you?" "Oh, of course," said Joachim. "I'd know him at once. He talked a bit oddly, too. But then, maybe he's not from Norway." That day, Mama met Joachim at school, and they took the bus to town to meet Papa. From the pizza restaurant, they could look down on the market in front of the cathedral. As they ate, Papa kept asking, "Can you see him yet, Joachim?" And every time Joachim had to answer, "No." John wasn't at the market selling flowers anymore. They bought some chunky candles and a couple of Christmas presents, then went into the bookshop where Joachim had found the magic Advent calendar. The bookseller recognized Papa and Joachim at once, and shook Mama's hand too. "Here we are again," said Papa. "We wondered whether you had if you've heard anything of this remarkable flower seller." The bookseller shook his head. "It's quite a while since he was here. He's not usually around much at this time." "The magic Advent calendar is a bit of a mystery," explained Mama. "We wanted to invite him home to us, to thank him for it properly." They agreed that the bookseller should ask John to phone them. "Oh, just one more thing," said Papa as they were leaving. "Do you know what country he comes from?" "I think he said he was born in Damascus," the bookseller said. When they were in the car going home, Papa sat, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel. "If only we had found that man," he said. "At least we found out where he comes from," replied Mama. "Isn't Damascus the capital of Syria?" And there ended the reading for today. Chapter 16, or the 16th of December, looks like it has a broken Colosseum on it. We must be getting close to Roman cities and places like that would show a Colosseum. Cool. But that, ladies and gentlemen, has to wait till tomorrow. I'm enjoying this book. I hope you are too. It's a different kind of Advent calendar, isn't it? And we are getting closer and closer to Bethlehem and to the time when Jesus is born. Hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.